somebody?
That so feel free to keep going. That will be handled.
Got it. Cool. Let me just minimize that thing. Hey everybody. I don't know where you are in the world. I'm actually Australian. I am currently in San Francisco, and I'm going to be covering. Oops, just hang on a sec. Sorry, I'm going crazy there. I'm going to be covering Buzzy. We're one of the sponsors of the hackathon and that, and super excited to bring you some pretty cool technology. We've had thousands of people join the wait list in the last couple of weeks, and I've got something that's pretty exciting that we're going to give you at the end of the presentation. I'm going to give you access to Buzzy AI. It comes with a caveat that we haven't released it to that, like this size cohort before. We hope that you do have a ChatGPT 4 API key, version 4, to be able to do that. If you can use that with the system, that would be absolutely awesome. We will try and share it on our key as well, but we tend to get throttled with large loads by OpenAI. So if you use your own key, then it allows us to spread the load. But to give you a quick bit of background about Buzzy and about me, so I've been in the tech game a long time. I was a founder of a company. We sold it to IBM, and we started building a no-code platform that I call an ugly no-code platform, several years ago. And it was very, very powerful. You can scale it, on Kubernetes, extremely large. And we kind of built these ugly apps. You could create a responsive website or a native application, like literally within minutes. And we pivoted a couple of years ago to make nice, sexy looking apps. And instead of inventing our own GUI, we said, why don't we integrate with the tools that everybody know and love out there? So tools like Figma, InVision, Sketch, Adobe XD. Now we started with Figma, and we've kind of stuck with it, given all that's happened in the marketplace over the last year or so. But the core idea of Buzzy is like we're using generative AI to be able to take your idea, generate a Figma file, and then turn it into an app. And we can literally do that in minutes. So I'm going to give you a demonstration of that. And I've got some cool stuff that I want to show you, and then we're going to get into some geeky sort of stuff as well, because given that it's a hackathon, it's not just for business people and designers. It's about getting into sort of some of the deep tech stuff as well. So let's have a look. So again, just the core concept is that we're taking this idea, at the moment we're using OpenAI. We could be using other AI technology as we're actually using LangChain under the covers. So we might bring in other AIs to supplement the process where it makes sense. It's really looking at things from a design-centric approach. So you're going to be using Figma as the key tool to be able to tweak the application and then code when you need it. So for today's session, I'm going to give you a couple of demos. The first demo is really high level, but you're going to be able to create an app literally in minutes without any coding. And then based on the application that gets generated, I've got a demo that will show you how we can do things like we can integrate with ChatGPT in the example, and then I'll cover off how to actually get started so you guys can get going. So really what we wanted to do was bring you some technology for this weekend's hackathon that allowed you to accelerate the creation of your MVPs way beyond that you would have had to, if you would have had to do, code things by hand. So let's, hopefully the audio is going to work over here, but I'm going to play you, this is like a 1-minute video, which will kind of give you where we are in terms of our vision.
Don't force me out of bed in my society. Don't push me down the road to blend out. Don't try to fix my head, it's just your anxiety. Don't hush me like this, I just want to shine. Don't No, my body don't move like that. I can't see a song coming. You'll be running when we raise the black flag.
Cool. So yeah, that kind of probably describes it way quicker and more visually than I could. And the cool thing about that is we're actually going to give you access to be able to do it. And I'll give you a demo now how that actually works. But what we sort of tend to find is like we've been doing a lot of demos over the last few weeks, and with me being in the US over here, this is one that I gave a couple of weeks and we actually got permission to show it. It's 30 seconds, but this is what I hope that, you know, we'll get this type of feedback from you guys.
What the? Oh, wow. Holy shit. Oh my God. Holy shit. Amazing. This is just insane. Wow. I really wish that this existed a few years ago before I, you know, started spending all my money on tech. This is insane. Like, this is absolutely insane.
But cool. So that's what we're looking to do. And let's actually do that. Hold a sec. Oh, wait, let me stop that. There we go. Cool. So let's actually go and create an app. And so I'm going to flick into Figma. And at this point of time over here, I'm on a blank canvas. We've got some starter Figma files, which have got some UI kit or design systems that we're going to use to be able to build a site. And we've got 3 different flavors of those, and I'll talk about them a bit later. But why don't we start by creating an application? And to give you an idea, this is really the chat interface. So you're going to be able to install the Buzzy plugin. You're going to log in. There's a form that we'll just need to get you to fill out so we can enable your account to use the AI, because by default, Buzzy's been around for a while as a Figma plugin, but not everybody gets access to the AI. You can pay for it. We won't stop you if you want to do that, but we're going to give you access for the hackathon. So let's say we wanted to create a recipe app, and the reason I'm going to use this is it's kind of fitted in quite nice to where AI could potentially fit in for tech for good. So in this example, we're going to create like a meal planning app, and that meal planning app is going to have a meal, and then you can have, for that meal, we can have a list of suggested recipes. And then from that, we want to be able to do things like generate, for, let's say you've got, let's say you've got some ingredients. Let's use AI to generate a list of potential recipes, and then also generate things like a shopping list from the missing ingredients and so on. Now, I'm not going to do all of that now, but I'm going to give you the concept and the construct so you can be able to build that pretty quickly. And I actually was moving things around servers and decided to rebuild things. I literally built this entire demo a couple of hours ago, but I don't have the time to do all of that now. So we're going to go through it pretty quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a brief in. And the process you go through is you put your brief in, you then define your data model. Once you've got your data model right, then you can go through and you can actually generate the screens in Figma, and then you can click publish. So depending on, so I created a brief over here. So, create a meal planning app that gives me recipes based on ingredients. You know, when a meal gets submitted, it then comes back and so on. So I'm going to do this separately, because what I did is I actually did this about 2 hours ago. And then I took that application and I customized it, and I'll show you the customized version just to speed up the process over here. Now, this does take a variable amount of time. We're calling the ChatGPT 4 APIs. The reason we need the ChatGPT 4 APIs, the size of the prompts, it's well over the 4K for 3.5. So we needed to go, towards the 8K mark. Also, obviously, we found that the accuracy of GPT-4 is a lot better than 3.5, especially when we're dealing with things like data models and things like that. It's surprisingly good at that. What I thought I might do, though, is just while we're waiting for this, and it'll take so it's actually generating the brief at the moment. We asked it to create both the brief and the data model. This is iterative. So this is where you're going to spend your time getting the brief right. It's going to try and summarize things into, key bits of functionality for your application. And, once we've got that and the data model, you're going to really sort of tweak those and get it right. So we're going to go through this pretty quickly because we've got a limited amount of time. But the core idea is that this might take several minutes to actually create an application. But if you were to think about creating a brief and giving that to, let's say, a designer to then create a Figma file, and that you're probably talking, days, hours, staying up all night. So we're going to accelerate that process. In 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to have, probably would have taken, days, weeks, months, depending on the complexity of the app that you generate. Just while we're waiting, I want to give you just some other assets that we've got. We've got a ton of, I mentioned before that we've got a couple of starting UI kits. We've got silver, a dark one, a light one. All these are just standard Figma files. So if you're familiar with Figma, or someone on your team is familiar with Figma, you can just come in and edit that and tweak it and so on. There's a couple of videos over there to do it, and we've got links to that information. We'll get to that later in the presentation. There's a bunch of different apps over here, like, for example, a health one, task list, some basic patterns, things like search, the security, user logging in. There's, image and field demos, recipes. There's some more complex ones like, like CRM. This is actually probably a good one to have a look at as well. So you can just duplicate any one of these Figma files. This one is pretty cool because it goes through and it's got some sample code to generate a chart. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard, I think it was Superhuman, and a lot of product development organizations go through how do you define product market fit. And this was actually an application that asks user, 3 key questions, along the way, which, how would you feel if you didn't have the product? And then it allows you to chart that information as well. It's just using a standard JavaScript chart. So when you develop a Buzzy application, you can actually create widgets if the out-of-the-box stuff doesn't do it with code. So, and there's also integration points where you can call REST APIs and stuff, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So let's flick back to, let's go back to Figma over here. So we can see a few different things have happened in the background. We've created a brief. So over here we can see that it says meal planning app. You can create a meal, you can submit a meal, you can generate recipes. Generally, what I find when I'm doing this, it doesn't get it right the first time. You might have to come in and say, hey, you know what, add this to the spec, or remove this and so on. Where it sort of comes together as one key component is the data model. So this is where it will do things like it will create the data tables, and it should also create the relationships for those data tables. So this isn't a good example of where we've got a parent data object, which is like the meal. And then, it captures things like allergies, available ingredients, dietary constraints, and so on. Now, every one of these items in the plugin over here is actually editable. So if we wanted to change, the data type or the field type, to like an image or a date time field or whatever it is, you can do that over there. Oh, sorry, this is the field type. Yeah, there we go. So that's that. And then, for things like sorting, you might want search, key index fields and that. I'm not going to go through all that. We've got a bunch of tutorials that are available, but it's fairly self-explanatory. Now, you can choose the data table that field, is related to, and so on. You can also come in and add additional fields, and there's a whole bunch of other configuration options that you can do down at the field level. Now, one of the things I noticed over here, and this is kind of interesting because I kind of just took this brief, is that the recipe, which is made up of a couple of fields, so things like ingredients, servings, title, and obviously there's a user object there as well. But it's missed the requirement that really recipes should be a subtable or a child of a meal. So let's go and actually add that in. So I'm going to say make recipes a child data table of meal. And we can send that. Let's see what it does. I usually word it different ways, so I'm kind of living on the edge over here. So this is what I was talking about, refinement. So refining and working and iterating, and that is a key part of the process over here. So it's going to go, you can see it's trying to give us back some information of what it understands. So it says, I'll update the data model to make recipes a child data table of meal. I usually use subtable as a directive, but again, you could use your traditional data management. You could say meals have many recipes. You could have the two constructs of one-to-many and many-to-many are supported. One-to-many is traditionally, we call it a subtable. Many-to-many is what we call a linked table field. So you can link tables between fields, which, in traditional database speak, that's just, foreign keys. So let's see what this comes back with. Now, the types of applications that you can create with this, they can be pretty complex. We've seen people, create like fairly sophisticated, different user interfaces. Like, for example, one customer's developed a native mobile application that is Bluetooth. It syncs with a Bluetooth blood pressure monitor. Then there is a therapist portal, and the therapists can have a look at what the patient's blood pressure is, and then they can message them and communicate with them and give them guidance and advice based on those results. Now, if you think of that in the context of, change for good, to be able to, that particular application, including the patient portal, the backend that's used by the therapist, and then the patient's UI, was done with zero code. So the only Bluetooth connector that we've currently got is the blood pressure monitor, but we will be providing a customizable way that you can do the transformations for any Bluetooth device. So we've already done the Bluetooth connector, which is generic, and then we'll be providing a way that you can come in and just code. Now, coding Bluetooth is kind of nasty. It's at bits and byte level, so it's not one of those easy coding tasks. But for the designer who put the application together, all they had to do was say, you know what, that application, that particular field is just a Bluetooth blood pressure monitor, and they mark it up in their Figma file, publish it, and it comes out as a native app. Now, sitting under the covers of a Buzzy implementation is a server. So there's a server. Technically, we're running on a Node.js server. We're producing standard HTML. We're using things like WebSockets and stuff. For our native application, under the covers, we use React Native. It's running with SQLite. You can literally we've had customers with hundreds of thousands of documents. our background was traditionally things like geolocation and people running around the field with taking gigabytes of map tiles offline. So the technology is robust from that point of view. So let's see what's happened over here. So we can see that now recipes is a subtable of a meal, and that's the relationship we want. So this is coming soon, but I mentioned to you before, I showed you those Figma files, so you can get away with just starting with one of those Figma files. It's kind of effectively the same thing. The next step over here is to generate the app design. So what it's going to do is going to take three core things. It's going to take the brief, which is a functional description of the application. It's going to take the data model, which is it's a data relationship, or think of, the concept of like an entity relationship description of what the data is in the system and how they relate to each other. And then it's going to take the UI kit that I showed you, and it's going to basically put them all together and construct a whole bunch of Figma files, Figma screens, frames. They automatically are marked up with Buzzy. So there's nothing stopping you from taking a blank Figma canvas and creating a Buzzy application with no AI. It would just take you a whole lot longer to be able to do that. You would have to, obviously if you're using a UI kit, you can do it pretty quickly, but traditionally what we see is that customers are, spending, anywhere from days to weeks to create, depending on the complexity of the application. Now, the idea is with Buzzy is that if we can get you 20% of the way there, 40%, 60%, 80 or 90% of the way there, that is going to speed up the entire process of being able to, create your MVP. So while we're sitting here waiting for, ChatGPT to come back to us. So just by the way we're using ChatGPT is not to generate code. We're not generating the end result of like a Node.js application and HTML and that. What we're generating are the data definitions and the description of the application, which is inherent in both the Figma file and the way that it's marked up, and then in the Buzzy app definition. That gives us an incredible amount of flexibility to take that information and turn it into a mobile app, to turn it into a web app. Maybe in the future we'll have TV apps or watch apps and so on. So it becomes we're using AI to help us generate the description of the application. Now, like I said, you can do this all, manually yourself, and you can design whatever you want. There are going to be certain things that where the AI is and what level it's at, it's not going to be able to do what you want to do. So at the moment, there's three core patterns that we in terms of our roadmap. The one is like a data content heavy pattern. We're very strong in that at the moment. So you can, and by data, I mean like everything from looking at content, forms, flows, and so on. So you can construct that with the data relationships, and that works pretty well with the AI at the moment. When you start to get into more of the complex, the next pattern are workflows. So like moving through complex workflows, then the AI can kind of get you so far, but you're probably going to have to do some configuration of within Buzzy, and potentially code. So the second part of the demo that I'm going to give, I'm going to show you how we're going to do some coding to integrate with OpenAI to, go and get a list of, recipes based on a set of ingredients. So a very simple example, but it will kind of, obviously it's your hackathon. You guys need to think of the cool ideas. So I'm just giving you some tools to be able to accelerate that process. The third pattern, patterns like, for example, e-commerce, like where they're very specific patterns, like things like shopping carts and checkouts and inventory and things like that, that you can code in Buzzy, like as in when I say code, you can configure Buzzy to do that, and you might need some code to do things. But like the AI at this point in time, the level of AI integration that we've got, it's not quite there yet. I think we'll get there pretty quickly. this first version and that, because of the flexibility, the way that Buzzy's built under the covers, like using these app definitions and metadata, we've done this really quickly. So for us, the real smarts is not the AI. The AI is just an accelerator for us, an incredible extension point to an application, as we're about to have a look at. So again, this will take several minutes. So where are we at now? So it should be done pretty soon. I don't
Hello,
know
welcome to the January 20th, 2023 Club Cubase live stream. We're gonna do a quick audio test and then we will begin. Bear with me just for a moment.
Hey, did anyone else hear that? Or
Everything sounds fine on my monitoring computer. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm the host of the live stream. I work for Yamaha Corporation of America, and my duties primarily focus on Steinberg products. So we are the United States distributor for Steinberg. And so now I'm presenting from outside of Washington, D.C. area, United States, in Alexandria, Virginia. If you are watching the live stream live, please feel free to introduce yourself. And even if you're watching on replay, you can introduce yourself and tell us where you're from in the comments field. It's always fascinating to see people from all the world on the live streams. If you have not attended a live stream before, how it works is we can ask questions in real time in the chat field, or you can send questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. We'll go through each of the questions chronologically. If you don't see an immediate response to your question, right, that
Hey,
as the live stream goes on, I may be behind for 3 minutes, but I will do my best to catch up and get all the questions answered. So if you don't get an
sorry, I don't know. I think somehow like Siri played a video, so I think that was my mistake. Sorry. Okay, so in the background, what happened, and that wasn't a sleight of hand by any way. That means we actually generated the app. Sorry, that was somehow that YouTube started playing at double speed. So if we have it, let me just minimize this. So that's a neat little tool, by the way. So if the Buzzy little plugin over here is too big for you, just minimize it like that. We can see that this is created the Smart Meal Planner. I don't know why it keeps on doing that, not putting any spaces so it doesn't wrap the text. You can see that it's got the homepage over here. So these are the meals. It's done some navigation for us. You can then, you can have a look at the meal list. You can see it's created all the create, read, update, delete screens. So all the CRUD screens and that are created. Now, these are just Figma files, right? So you can come in and modify this. And what I was talking about before, if you look at what's been marked up over here, so let's go into one of these fields. This over here is the field, a field type, and it's related to the recipe title. So that's the recipe title field. And again, it maps to what was defined in the data model for that. For things like the list of recipes, we can see that this is a subtable, which is the list of recipes. And then for each one of the recipes, it brings out a card, which allows you to navigate to it. And then, in the card is going to be a title and a description and so on. So you get the idea that when you've got these widgets, you can build pretty much anything with Buzzy and come in and actually mark it up. Now the AI has done that automatically. So let's go to the next step over here, and I'm going to just click on I'm going to click on convert to new Buzzy app. So this is actually going to take the marked up Figma file, which you've either marked up by hand or generated by the AI in this example, and it's going to generate it and turn it into an application with a full database sitting on a Kubernetes cluster on a server. And there it is. So it probably took 20 to 40 seconds to be able to do that, depending on the complexity of the app. If you want to hit that QR code on your phone, you're welcome to do that. There's not going to be any content in this particular site at the moment, or this app. We're just going to look at it through the browser. Hopefully you've hit that QR code, and let's have a look at it in the browser. So here we'll have a look at this app. Again, we've done no coding at this point in time. And you can see over here, we've got our snap screen. Here we've got, there's no meals found. And there's meals over here, and I can put a meal in. So let's just say I'm going to call it dinner 1. I can put my allergies in. So let's just say milk, available ingredients. So I've got, let's just say fish, potatoes, fish and potatoes, dietary constraints. Let's just say I'm vegetarian or something like that. So again, this was all completely generated by the AI defining that app definition. It's even done things like it's wired up like these modal responses and it knows things like, your meal has been submitted. So it's uses intelligence for that. Now we can see that we've got this dynamic list of meals that exist in this list. And there it is. And now we can start putting recipes in. So that was the first part of the app. That's what I literally did about 2 hours ago. And I'm going to show you, I then went and enhanced this so we can now start talking to ChatGPT. So the first phase over here is really a massive accelerator to you. So if you're thinking about an idea that you want to create an app for the weekend, like I said, Buzzy might get you 20% of the way there, or 80, or even maybe 100% of the way there, depending on what you're actually trying to do. It's just super fast to be able to do that. And again, it's a fully responsive. We're not going to, I think over the weekend, getting native apps going, you're dealing with App Store stuff as well. We've actually got a player app, but there's probably not enough time to do that in a weekend, because you need to go through the whole rigmarole of setting up your Google and Android stuff, and that can take days and a whole bunch of effort. But to be able to look at it in here, and like our whole focus is on high fidelity. So be able to take this application and it looks as close or exactly like what is in Figma. Like I said, it works responsively and so on. So that's part one of the demo. I'm going to go to part two, which is I'm going to come back to my Figma file. So this is what I actually went and did what we just did a short while ago. And then what I wanted to do was, let's just have a look over here. The application, so again, like very similar to what you did over there, except that what I've added, sorry, the zoom thing's in the way. Let me just move that up. Please go away. Zoom thing. I'll minimize it. There's too many options there. Oops, where was I? Sorry, let me make this a bit smaller. So I'm going to click on the meals over here. So I can come in and add a new meal. So I'm just going to say lunch tomorrow. Just looked in the fridge. I've got a friend who's coming over who's, let's say, gluten. Let's say gluten. Available ingredients. Let's say I've got salmon, potatoes, lettuce. I can't spell. My nickname's Adnan. I can't spell my own name. Lettuce, tomatoes, or tomatoes, as they say in America. Tomatoes. Okay, and then dietary constraints, I'll just say pescatarian. Tomatoes, there we go. And I'm going to submit that. Now, at the moment, I could have made the AI run on like a submit, so you can wire up rules in Buzzy. But for the purpose of the demo, I just kind of kept it pretty simple. So there's two ways that you can integrate with external systems. So one is you can have a rule that I just mentioned, which is like a server-side thing, and I'll show you how that's configured in a bit. The other is you can have an HTML component. This will actually run on native as well. So even React Native, we run it in a little web view. It's effectively a sandbox iframe. Now in this page over here, the only thing that is that sandboxed iframe is this little generate recipes button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click it. I haven't put a spinner or anything on it, so it is actually clicked. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the console here, and what it's done. This is probably, I don't know if I can make this bigger, but let's try that. Oh, well, that's like so big. Let's make that a bit bigger. Let's make that a bit bigger. So what this is doing is it's generated a prompt that's going to go to ChatGPT. And you can see over here, it's got, let's over here, it's got the role of user, generate 5 recipes that include most of the provided ingredients. salmon, potato, lettuce, tomatoes, and adhere to the dietary constraints of pescatarian. Compute the missing ingredients to all as all ingredients to the recipe provided. Actually, this probably needs some tweaking, this prompt, but again, just for the purpose of the demo, like that's separate. I just wanted to show an example of calling a prompt, getting the result, and then putting it into Buzzy. So in this example, so then it asked as well for the some additional information. It also asked for and actually, I can't remember. No, I swapped this back. This call is actually using ChatGPT 3.5. So it's not that good with things like system prompts as compared to 4. And it's going to return the response in JSON. And it kind of gives, some parameters of here, which is an array of missing ingredients and so on. Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to get back recipes. We want to get back the missing ingredients. And then if the data is well structured, like in a JSON, like array of JSON objects, then we can take that and we can put it into a shopping list. So we could have generated a shopping list inside Buzzy and so on. Now, the time that it's taking over here, how do I make that window smaller? What is that? I'm just gonna go back to that mode. So this is like, I did a bunch of tests before this, and like sometimes this is quick, sometimes it's slow. So it's really just depending how the API key that you're using with ChatGPT 4 is being throttled, and obviously the performance of those servers. What I might do though is look at what this actually looks like inside the Buzzy file. So I generated that file very similar to the one that we generated before. And then what I did is I came in to, so over here, this is that app. So we've got the meal list over here. I actually just took a copy of the submit field and then I pasted it up over here. And if we look at this field, the way that it's configured, let's go into the markup. We can see that that is a HTML field. So the first thing I did is I went to the model and I went to meal and I added a new field called generate and I made it an HTML field. Now I can go into that field and I can look at its, because I wanted it just to be the size of the button, I changed its width and height. There's different connection modes. Probably just use static for now. It just means that it won't re-render and it'll still pass, it'll still dynamically get the data to it. And then we can look at it in here. Now, what I tend to do is I don't like doing this type of coding in here. So you can come into, if you go into the publish tab and you go manage in Buzzy, this will actually take you to the CMS and you'll see a bunch of things. So you'll see effectively the data tables. So think of this as the database. So over here, we've got our recipes, we've got our meal. By the way, if I click into this, you'll see the relationship of that data. So this is one that I generated before, which was dinner 2. And it's got the different recipes that are in there and it's got its ingredients and so on. Let's go see if that's actually, where was I? Lost my window there. Yeah, we timed out. So ChatGPT, you can see over here, it finished reason is it stopped. It's like half generated the response. So you're going to have to expect that with, that's totally out of Buzzy's control. It just depends on how ChatGPT is going. So I'm just going to click it again and we'll see if it comes back with something. What did I do there? Did I do something? Actually, maybe there's a problem in my prompt. We'll have a look at that now. Or maybe did I just edit something as I was changing it? So the way that you configure the HTML fields, again, I mentioned to you before, like doing it inside the plugin and that is generally like, I find that not enough real estate. So I'm going to come into the data table. So I went into the properties of the data table. I'm going to come into, scroll down over here, and we can see that's where the HTML field is, and we can have a look at it over here. So I'm going to take you through this code and explain what it's doing, more from a point of view to give you an idea of how you can use this. Now, the documentation of our API, if you come to the Buzzy docs over here, if you go to the REST API, you can pretty much use these functions to be able to do certain things. So you can do things like insert rows, update row. You can insert data and so on. And it's a pretty simple REST API. These same functions are also available from the sandboxed iframe. And the reason it's sandbox is it's secure, but we've created messages, which are a way for you to securely pass messages between the sandbox iframe and the parent window. And the way that that works is, I've got too many tabs open now. Where is it? Yeah, that one. So I actually do like working with lots of tabs. So it just gives you the ability to, let me just get this little zoom window out the way. I'll put it over there. It allows you just to hit the update and test what's going on. So if we look at this HTML field, it's got some basic HTML that's in that little iframe. Remember, this is just for the button. It's got some styling information, and then it's got the code. And I've got this. And by the way, this key, I'm going to delete it after this meeting. So I've just created that API key for this, and I will delete it. But what happens, let's start at the bottom over here. So the first thing we've got in the HTML is the button. And the button, it gets its styling from the CSS that's in here. And then it calls, when you click it, it calls the generate recipes function. The generate recipes function is up here, and we're going to come to that in a second. But the important thing over here is there's this event listener. So this is the way that we securely get data from the parent window, which is Buzzy, and your code, which is running in this sandbox iframe. So the listener over here, it gets passed three key bits of information. So row is JSON, that's the current row. So in this scenario, it would be the meal. It also gets an object, which is all the data that is currently available to the page. Now, you might have documents which have millions of records. You don't want all that data at once. It will crash the browser or the mobile device. So you can selectively go, and we've got ways that you can query the data and get data out of the system. The frame token is just something that's just used for security. So it gets passed in and it gets passed back, and it's just a way of validating that it's coming from like a known source. So the app data is passed in, from the message, and then it is then made available as a global to the rest of the functions. So now we can, when we call generate recipes, it has the data because it's been passed in to it. So we generate the recipes. Let's have a look at that code. And again, this is just sample quick stuff that I wrote. There's still a whole bunch of debugging here, which is helpful when you're trying to understand how things work. So if you think about what this is doing, is it's setting up, let's have a look at here. So it sets up the headers to make a REST API call. That's your ChatGPT token. Again, like I said, I'll delete it. So if you start using it now, you get like 5 minutes to use my key, and then please don't use it. You're then going to pass your prompt. Now, remember the data that's coming in through the params are things like the rows JSON, and then it has the field name. So these are the dietary constraints that are passed in to that are going to be part of the string that we're going to pass to ChatGPT. So these are the available ingredients. There's somewhere along here, I think I put something in which was causing a syntax error. So I'll come back to that in a sec. But so this is then passing the instructions to ChatGPT. Obviously, things like temperature and the number of tokens and all the other parameters. So at the moment, it's going to ChatGPT 3.5. And then it's going to make the post. So these are the request options. So it's going to do a post, pass the headers, pass the data, and then any of the other parameters that you need to pass. So then it's going to call. So we're using fetch in this example, pass all those options, and then it's going to get a response. And then obviously, we'll try catch any errors in that, although that looks like it's all commented out. So you could post a message to the parent saying, hey, there's an error with this data or whatever it is. That's just so if you look at what happens over here, so we get the result back from ChatGPT. We're going to parse it. We're going to get the message. It's going to be an array of recipes, that recipe, and then we can loop through each one of the recipes. And then for each one of the recipes, what we want to do, if we look at, I keep forgetting which tab we're in. Let's have a look at this. For each one of the recipes, we want to create a recipe in here as we did in this example. So again, it's going to fill out the recipe from what came back from ChatGPT, but you obviously don't want to have to go and type that in. And the little bit of code to do that is, where are we? It's this one thing. The little bit of code to do that is this. So it's going to post a message. It's going to call the insert micro app rows. That's a data table. We've kind of changed the name of micro apps to data table. They mean the same thing if you see it in the documentation. We're going to pass, if you remember, a meal was a parent, and this is the parent's ID. So you want to, this is the foreign key for the child. And then you're going to pass in the micro app ID. I'll show you how to get that in a second. And then you're going to pass in the data. So the title, the ingredients, the instructions, additional recipes, and so on. And then you can run rules in it, or you can tell it to ignore the rules. So just the summary of this is we're calling ChatGPT, we're getting a whole bunch of data, a bunch of recipes, and then we're inserting them in there. Now you could then do the same thing that if you had the additional ingredients and that was an array, these missing ingredients, then you can use that, either in this call or a separate call to then add that to a shopping list. So that's as simple as it is. You're getting the data back and then you're doing that. Now, obviously there's probably there's again, a bunch of code over here that's commented out. There's probably like 100 lines of code. The other, thousands of lines of code to create the application you didn't have to touch. So you're really just focusing in on the hard stuff. Okay, so I want to, just looking at the clock, I want to make sure that we get to the important stuff and get you guys access. So I'm going to jump to that. I don't know why that GPT call was working before. I'll run it in the background again. Just let's go. Let's do that again, see if it comes back with something. And let's go. And now there's a couple of, if you want to go to, you can, if you want to go to that page, oops, where did it go? If you want to hit that QR code to register, this is going to give you access to what I just demonstrated to you. You guys are really special that we're giving you this access now. Please do not share it outside the hackathon. Please use it. I prefer if you use it one per team. If you've got a GPT-4 API key, please use it, because I think we've never done it with this many people before. I think we're going to get throttled, and you won't get a response from the AI if everyone's hitting it all the time. But hey, you know, let's live on the edge. Once you go through that, sorry, this little Zoom window is getting in the way. Once you go through that little, where is it going? Let me just click that link again. So it's going to take you to this page. Please put in your name, your email address, and just let us know whether you've got an API key. If you don't have an API key, we need to enable you. So you won't be able to run the API key. So get the plugin and everything installed and just ping us on the Slack channel. If we haven't enabled it, we'll try to do it as fast as possible, depending on how many people sign up. But you do that. Once you fill that form out, you will then go to this page. So this page is got all the important information that kind of covers a lot of what we just went. So it's got a link for you to get the plugin. You need to reconfigure the plugin and get it to point to hackathon.buzzy.buzz. That's the servers that we've set up for this. So that's really important because that's going to give you access to the AI stuff. And then and also we've scaled those servers up to deal with the load for the weekend. So once you've connected that, you can put in your ChatGPT API key. Then there's the 3 different UI kits that are starting with. So just grab these, duplicate them in Figma. You've got the plugin installed and just give it a crack. You know, just type in a prompt and just start playing with it. I mean, that's the idea. And then if you want to get into like the more sophisticated stuff, there's all the getting started guides, the documentation. We've got a Discord forum as well. I know we've got the Slack channel here, but there's other people in that Discord forum that might be able to help you with things, and so on. So that's kind of it. I don't know if there's any questions that folk want to ask. I do see a couple of items in the chat. I wanted to see if this thing hey, it worked. So there we go. So if you look at, like, again, use the console over here. I should have cleared it. So over here, if we look, we gave it salmon, potatoes, lettuce, and tomatoes. It's come up with salmon potato skewers. We can look into that recipe. I've got to find like GPT 3.5 wasn't as accurate as I'd like. Or maybe it just assumes that everyone's got salt and pepper. But then it says, okay, right, the missing ingredient here is bell pepper. And again, we could put a button, the same one of those buttons that we did for generating the recipes. We could have a button which is add that to your shopping list, or you could do it auto-magically and so on. So that's pretty cool. And, you know, again, here's another one over here, which is salmon cakes. Actually, it's done a pretty good job of it. It says, hey, I need to get some onion, egg, and breadcrumbs. So that's pretty cool. And there you go. So again, it's a good example of where we've see, this one over here told me that I need lemon juice and garlic. I don't know if the other ones did that, but so anyway, you can play around with the prompts, you know, play around. This is using 3.5, this API call, but you know, maybe 4 will give a better result. So yeah, that's kind of it. Let me just check what the okay, yeah, I'll put the links in the chat. I will do that. I've got too many tabs open. Where did I go? Where was that one? No, that was
Adam, maybe putting it on the channel, on your channel on Slack might be easy.
Yeah. I'm just, once I find, I will do that. So let me, that was that one. That was that one. That was the, it's like, yeah, here we go. I'm going to put that into the Slack channel. Where's the Slack channel? We'll do that over there. So that will take you to the second screen. Once you fill out that form, it'll take you to that second screen. I will put the second screen in there as well, which is this one. So, oh, just one thing that I didn't cover, I mentioned to you, when you, like, we use the HTML component for a for the application. Let's try to find a window with Buzzy. Where is it gone? Here we go. Shut that down. So you can go to the advanced section here. By the way, we've got a very sophisticated extract, transform, and load capability. So you can pull data sources from CSV files, from REST APIs, all sorts of stuff. You need to read the documentation for that. We use JSONata to do the transforms. So you can write like little functions to deal with the data. This is where you do the server-side stuff, like the action. So for example, like when a row was submitted to a data table, you could do something like, I could send a notification, like a push notification. I could send a JSON API request, and you can get the data, and you can refer to the data in the current row. You can send that to an external source. We have the REST API over here that I showed you before that you can call back into Buzzy. So those are like, so going out with rules and coming in with API calls. I'm really struggling with these tabs today. There's too many things going on. I usually have a thing where I bring it over to the left. Oh no, it's that one, different color icon. It's actually that one. So you can do all these types of rule stuff. So you can do things like cross-app actions. You could have it like when a button like is clicked, or a field is edited, and then again you can send data to Google Analytics if you want to trace, build funnels of users and analytics and things like that. You can also do that in the Figma components. There's ways that you can pass in Google Analytics if you want to have a look at what's going on. Yeah, so a whole lot of extension points. Like this is kind of a whole topic in itself, but it's very similar in concept to what I showed you with the HTML field, where you can just write your own code. Now, in this example over here, like we see a lot of scenarios like where you would write a DO function, an external function, like similar to an AWS Lambda function for some business logic that would perhaps make API calls to ChatGPT and then call back into Buzzy using the Buzzy API and stuff like that. So there's, again, endless amount of flexibility there for you to integrate that. And again, the idea is that, for a lot of the boilerplate, for a lot of the screens, the security model, if you've got like in data tables and that, you can set, like a whole bunch of different security levels. You've got row level security. You've got, down to fields over here. You've got things like validation. You've got, all sorts of stuff. This stuff you can actually access through the plugin as well. And you can define who can interact with those fields. There's different roles and so on. There's also, a whole security model where you can define organizations and teams and have users as part of that. And they can also integrate as part of the onboarding. I'd probably avoid that for, the hackathon. That's when you're going into production, you're going to put that functionality in, and so on. So I think I've run out of time, but thank you so much. I'll see you on the Slack channel. And I think we're going to try have another session. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or the next day, but that probably just be like a Q&A session. If you guys want to, just hit me up on the Slack channel. If you want to see more details on something, we can try and arrange that as maybe the next session, where I can demonstrate something else or answer questions and stuff. So cool. Thank you. Psyched. Can't wait to see what you guys do.
Thanks, Adam.
Oh, the link is broken. Did it not work? Did the registration work for anybody? if there's a problem, I'll post it in the Slack channel. I'm just gonna start an incognito window here. Seems to be working for me. So maybe the QR code was messed up. So yeah, let me, I'll just paste it here again in the chat. And so I know, I think you were asking for that. The register button. Let me have a look. So, so I'm just going to put Adam test. That seemed to work for me. Just ping me if it's not working for you. I'm not sure why that wasn't working for you. Yeah, I just it's somebody else is saying it's working. So I know, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Just message me. Yeah, Derek's saying it's worked for him. Cool. Let's see. There's something weird going on with the chat over here. Would Buzzy auto read blood pressure monitor data and analysis? We would capture the blood pressure data, but you then have to do some other AI magic to respond to the doctor. But that's a really interesting use case. But you will need the native mobile app to do Bluetooth stuff as well. So if you want to do that, we can do it probably through a player app. We could try and do that. Just ping me on the Slack channel if you want to do a blood pressure app. I've got a sample one that's available for that. That would be a good starting point. It's got charts and things. So cool. Is that it? Any other questions for me? Thanks for the positive statements, everyone. Was it Nick or Steve before? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm Nick. So thanks Adam for the workshop. I think if you can just add some commentary around those links on Slack, so people who didn't attend know what they are and what they can get out of it. That would be great, I guess. But other than that, thanks for your time. And I see everyone liked it and seems to be working for everyone, works for me as well. So I guess we can wrap up the workshop.
Yeah, cool. Stoked.
Perfect.
So I put those links. I'll put a bunch of the other links. I might just put that deck in there. So I'll put a bunch of the other links in there. So let's go. Oops. I'll show you the. I'm going to put an HTML link in there. There's an advanced HTML field. Look at that one. That's got some good stuff. And I've got the Figma Buzzy one as well. But the links that are in the app on that last page, they'll get you to all of this stuff. There's probably better stuff in there. Let's have a look here. What else did I have? I think that's about it. Is there anything else in the? So I know if you're still there, like I don't know, maybe unmute or something. Just tell me if you've got a problem. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a browser thing or.
I don't think
It might have gone.
he's there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not in the meeting anymore. So yeah. Cool. Okay. Are we done, Nick?
Yes, we are all good. Thank you, Adam, again for the perfect and great presentation. I think the tool is going to be great and useful for the hackathon. We will probably see a lot of questions or people commenting, asking for help on the Slack. So, would be good to keep an eye on it.
Yep. Cool.
Okay.
We'll
Thank
do
you,
that.
everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Looking forward to seeing what you create. Cheers, bye.